He loved the fragile version of me, the one he created. I didn't see it at first. I thought softness was my nature, not something he slowly carved out of me, piece by piece, like he was sculpting a girl who would never leave. He always said I was too emotional, too sensitive, too dramatic, but the strange thing was, he smiled every time my voice cracked, every time my hands shook, every time I fell quiet trying not to upset him again. The first time he called me delicate, it felt beautiful, like a compliment, like he saw something special in me, but delicate soon became dependent, and dependent became mine. He would raise his voice, just enough to bruise, not enough to blame. Then when I folded in on myself, he'd cup my face and whisper, "See? I only want to protect you." I started to believe that maybe I did need protecting. Maybe the world really was too sharp for someone like me. Maybe I should let him guide me, calm me, teach me. But tonight, something feels different. Tonight, as I sit on the edge of our bed with my breath trembling in my throat, I realize I'm not fragile by nature. I'm fragile by design, his design. And for the first time, a dangerous thought enters my mind. If he created this version of me, maybe I can uncreate her too. The morning after my realization felt unreal, like waking up in a body that wasn't fully mine yet, but no longer fully his either. I moved slowly, testing myself, as if any sudden step might shatter the fragile version he'd built. He noticed immediately. "Why are you so quiet today?" His tone wasn't concern, it was surveillance. I shrugged, a small, deliberate gesture, not the apologetic kind he preferred. His eyes narrowed, softly, almost lovingly, but I knew that look. It meant he felt something slipping. He reached for my wrist, lightly, like a caress. But even his tenderness had the shape of control. "You're uneasy." Not a question, a diagnosis. Normally, I would have rushed to reassure him, to smooth his worry, to shrink myself until he felt comfortable again. But today, I let the silence stretch. Something flickered in his expression. A crack. "Did I do something?" he asked, but not like someone afraid of hurting me, like someone afraid of losing me. And that's when it hit me. He didn't love my fragility because it made me soft. He loved it because it made me stay. I pulled my wrist from his hand, gently, but it was the first time I had ever pulled away at all. His breath caught. "So that's how it's going to be now," he whispered, a smile trying and failing to form. Maybe it was small, maybe it barely counted as resistance. But in his world, even a breath of independence was rebellion. And as I walked past him, I felt it for the first time. Not fear, not guilt, power. A tiny spark, glowing under my ribs. The first undoing. He didn't confront me right away. That wasn't his style. He preferred to observe, quietly, calculatingly, until he understood exactly which part of me had shifted out of place. But by evening, the tension around him had hardened like glass. He hovered near me, too close, pretending to tidy the living room, pretending not to watch. Every move I made, every breath I took, he catalogued with a precision that used to feel like devotion. Now it felt like a noose. "You're distant today," he finally said, arranging the same book on the table for the third time. "I'm just tired," I answered. A half-truth, enough to pacify a normal person, not him. His jaw clenched softly, almost invisible, but I'd learned to read every microscopic change in him. He wasn't angry yet. He was destabilized, I had disturbed the balance he relied on, my softness feeding his certainty, my dependence feeding his dominance. He stepped toward me, slow and deliberate, like approaching a frightened animal. "Did someone say something to you?" His voice was gentle, but his eyes were dark with suspicion. "No," I said too quickly. The wrong answer. He exhaled through his nose, a quiet, trembling sound. I realized then, it wasn't losing me that scared him. It was losing control over the version of me he had crafted. "The world is cruel," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "I only want to protect you." Once that line would have melted me. Now it felt like a cage lined with velvet. I didn't lean into his touch this time. I stayed still, and that tiny stiffness, barely anything, made him flinch, like I had struck him. His fingers dropped. His mask slipped for just a heartbeat. A crack. Then another. Not in me. In him. And I realized with a quiet, chilling certainty, when the fragile version of me begins to disappear, the fragile version of him begins to appear. The next morning, he tried a different tactic. Softness, sweetness. The version of him he used only when he felt me drifting too far from his orbit. He made breakfast, my favorite. He never cooked unless something inside him was shaking. "I thought you deserved a calm start," he said, placing the plate in front of me with trembling precision. His hands never trembled. I thanked him, careful, neutral, not warm enough to reassure him, not cold enough to provoke him, but he noticed anyway. "You're still different," he murmured, seating himself across from me, eyes fixed on my every micro-expression. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. He saw that too. "You're pulling away," he whispered. A statement, a wound. And suddenly the sweetness evaporated. His fingers tapped the table, slow and rhythmic. His tell. The moment when affection slips into obsession, when love mutates into something hungrier. "I need you," he said quietly, "but not like this. Not when you're strong." My breath hitched. There it was. The truth he'd never said aloud. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a fracture he could hold together. A tenderness born from dependency, not love. "Why can't you be soft with me anymore?" he asked, almost pleading. "Maybe I'm learning to stand," I replied, voice low but steady. His eyes glistened. Anger, fear, grief? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that my newfound strength terrified him more deeply than any argument ever had. Because if I could stand, I could walk away. He reached across the table, gripping my hand too tightly, his voice breaking into a whisper that felt like both a threat and a prayer. "Please, don't change." But the truth was already alive inside me. I had changed, and there was a price he was no longer able to ignore. He became gentler the moment he felt me slipping again, not truly gentle, just the version he used when he wanted to tighten the leash without leaving marks. He brought flowers. He kissed my forehead softly. He spoke in a whisper, as if loud sounds might scare me back into strength. "I miss the you who trusted me," he said, brushing my shoulder with two careful fingers. But it wasn't trust he missed. It was obedience. I stepped back, not dramatically, just enough that his hand fell into empty air. Something flickered behind his eyes, a bruise-colored emotion. His smile stayed, but it stretched too thin. "You think you're better without me?" His tone was light, almost joking. Almost. "I think I'm learning who I am," I answered. He exhaled sharply, like the sentence pierced something inside him. Then came his gentlest violence, the kind wrapped in concern. "I worry," he said. "You're fragile. The world is too sharp for someone like you." He reached for my chin, lifting it softly. The tenderness felt like a velvet rope tightening. "You need me," he whispered. "You always have." For a moment, the old fear brushed my skin. That dangerous warmth, that pull toward the familiar cage. But I held my ground. "No," I said quietly. "I needed you when I couldn't see myself." His expression collapsed, then hardened, then broke again. He didn't know how to hold a version of me that didn't tremble. And in his eyes I saw the truth. The stronger I became, the weaker his hold grew. He sensed it before I said a word, the quiet, steady resolve settling inside me like a new heartbeat. Not rebellion, not anger, just clarity. He stood in the doorway, watching me pack a small bag, not enough for a dramatic exit, just enough for truth. "So you're leaving." His voice was flat, but his fingers trembled against the doorframe. "I'm leaving the version of me you created," I said. "The one who only existed to keep you whole." He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. His eyes shone with something raw, something desperate. "I can be better," he whispered. "Tell me what you need. I'll change." But that was the trap. He only transformed when he felt me slipping. Never because he wanted me safe, only because he wanted me his. "I don't need you to change," I said. "I need me." The words struck him like a blade. His breath hitched, a tiny fractured sound. "Don't you love me?" A question meant to bind. "I love myself more now," I answered. Silence expanded between us, trembling, final. He reached out, fingertips brushing the air between us, not daring to touch. "You're stronger," he murmured, and there was no accusation in it, only grief. "Too strong for me." I nodded, not proud, not triumphant, just done. As I walked past him, the house felt different, lighter, as if my absence had already begun. He didn't follow, didn't call my name. Because the moment I stopped breaking, he lost the only version of me he ever knew how to love. Enjoyed the story? Subscribe for more, and feel free to share it with a friend. New stories are coming soon.